Hi, George.
Hi, and Sam.
How do you start a London maritime arbitration?
Okay, so in the last podcast, we looked at choosing your arbitrator. And before making an appointment, you need to check your clause for any required qualifications. Assuming there's no problem there, appointing your arbitrator couldn't be easier. It's a two-stage process. First of all, you contact the arbitrator and ask them to confirm their availability and that they are conflict-free. Secondly, you notify the opponent party that you've appointed the arbitrator, identifying them by name and contact details. The appointment becomes effective when you've done both. Let's assume you're making a party appointment to a tribunal of 3. When you contact the arbitrator, as well as asking whether they have a conflict, you might also want to find out how busy they are, especially if you're looking for an early hearing date or want to make an early application to the tribunal. It's also a good idea to find out their charging structure and whether they have any special terms. Most commercial arbitrators accept on LMAA terms, but barristers, for example, have their own additional terms. The simplest way of looking at the relationship with an arbitrator is as a contract. Although in a recent case, the High Court tried to avoid insisting on the formal requirements of a contract, it simply said the arbitrator had to indicate their availability, but it's easiest to look at this as a contract. Once the appointment is effective, the contract with the arbitrator becomes 3 ways, as both parties are responsible for the fees. It is a little more complicated than in contract because the terms are supplemented by the Arbitration Act. For example, these provide the overriding duty is to act fairly and impartially, and the LMAA terms are helpful as they've already thought out the sorts of the issues which can arise. Some arbitrators also will query whether there's any issue with sanctions, because this can impact them personally. The appointment fee is £350, seriously cheaper than issuing a High Court claim form. Once you've agreed on the availability of the arbitrator, you have to serve notice on the opponent. You need to specify the scope of the arbitration and whether it's a specific issue or something general like all disputes arising out of the contract. The notice can be very important because it stops a time bar arising, for example. A mail address, for example, a broker may not be authorized to accept service. The position varies a little when the clause only provides for a sole arbitrator. There you have to agree on the appointment with your opponent. But even if you can't agree and have to ask the High Court or the LMAA to appoint, you stop any time bar arising simply by saying that you're commencing arbitration.
Thank you very much, George. See you in the next episode.
Thank you, Ansam. Bye-bye.